First question, I read in a past interview that you've done, you said, my least favourite things are prim, proper and pretty, which in a way I think people would be surprised by, because I think a lazy journalist would perhaps describe your work as prim, proper and pretty. How would you describe your work?
The minute you do something pink and frilly, you get it turns into something that is prim and proper, and I'm not very prim and proper, so I suppose that's my that's what I don't like about that. There is something very pretty about them, and I like that. I think the main thing for me is that they've got a lot of craft and kind of time and energy has gone into the making of them, but I would say it's more kind of about fun. They're quite fun to wear. I
think there's a sense of when you wear one of your pieces or when you see one of your shows, it's like, it feels like the model's wearing a sensation rather than sort of wearing a garment. Like it's about feeling rather than a piece. Would you say that's correct?
The casting for me is very important. So I mean, the process of casting is more what I mean. Like I work with my sister Alice, and we use girls that we know quite well, girls we've known before, girls that are friends, and not necessarily professional models. And so like you get to know them and what they feel comfortable wearing. And so a lot of it for me is I don't want someone to turn up the night before the show and throw something on that they kind of don't have any relationship with. I quite like the girls to kind of get excited about what they're wearing, and I really enjoy that process. So yeah, like it's about them liking what they've got on and interacting with it in some way, I suppose. Yeah.
And talk to me a bit about the silhouette, because your clothes have a very defined shape.
Yeah, I mean, it actually started, and like you were talking about the baby clothes, I did my BA collection, I found my baby dresses and I blew them up on a photocopier and then traced off the patterns. So I kind of had these sleeve heads that were enormous, weird proportions, and that was kind of how that started, I suppose, that silhouette. I suppose I think about what I feel comfortable wearing, and I don't feel particularly comfortable in wearing kind of things that like are skin tight. I like to be able to like move around, and I like awkward silhouettes as well. I like when things are too big or too small, and you don't really get that when things are kind of bodycon, I suppose. So yeah.
Do you find it quite relentless, sort of that pressure to make more and more in like more seasons? And I feel like everyone's kind of questioning that at the moment, like why do we need 4 seasons a year, all of that. But do you feel quite a lot of pressure?
I do, but I quite like the pressure, I think. I work better under pressure. So we did like a pre-collection last season because we did a show at the V&A, so it kind of coincided with that, so it made sense. But and I quite liked it because it just gave me that, like, I work best under pressure. So I was saying earlier that at the moment we've got like, I've kind of got the freedom now finally to just do my job, which I guess is designing and like making the clothes. And because it's like 4 months, 5 months ahead the show, I'm kind of floundering, I don't really know what to do. So I'm trying to like find things that make me have deadlines. So I like it. And I think also like, it does move very fast and there are so many demands, but so long as you kind of know when to say no to them.
Yeah, do you ever feel slightly like that feeling of like shouting into the void? Because obviously there are so many shows and so many fashion weeks. How do you sort of cut through all of that noise?
Yeah, I think it's very hard. I was saying it'd be nice if at Fashion Week there could be like a limit on how many looks people could do, and if everyone just could only do 20 looks per show, it'd be be much better. But
or just like 8.
Yeah, just 8, a little capsule. Once you do one thing, people expect you to do that every time, and it's a bit boring. You kind of think, oh, actually, what if I want to do something totally different? And so kind of always having to think of another like twist on a show that we do can be a bit exhausting. But I think, I don't know, it sounds a bit silly, but I think so long as you kind of like have like belief in that one thing that you're doing, or even if you really hate it, like so long as you've got a kind of strong feeling about it, then I feel like it's okay to kind of keep on going. With each show, there's always this kind of, I have this like end image that I imagine, like that person in that setting, whatever it may be. And so I suppose whatever it is that fits in with that fits. And so, you know, next time it might be that everything is chilled. I don't ever really think about it too much, if that makes sense. But I do like to work very last minute, and that's why I'm struggling at the moment, because you kind of have too much time. And it's always the case with the first thing that I design and make for a collection, I scrap and it like all changes. So, but that's part of it, I suppose.
You said that you like always wanted to be a fashion designer. Like it wasn't like there was this eureka moment where you're like, I should do fashion. It was like you were always obsessed with your clothes. Like,
yeah.
When you were a child, was that the case? Like you were very particular about what you wore?
Yeah, I think I was. Yeah, I think I was. And I think my mum dressed me in kind of quite interesting clothes, like either these like ridiculous smock dresses that she got from a charity shop, and I'd wear like 2 of those, or I either look like that or I look like a boy, half and half. So I think that's kind of probably what's fed into quite a lot of what I do now, maybe. But yeah, I used to design lots, and you know, like was obsessed with kind of like looking at music videos and magazines, and I think I learnt about, I remember quite young and like learning about Galliano and loving everything that he did, and then finding out that he went to St Martin's and that Louise taught him. And so I kind of think I remember when I was doing my GCSEs that I thought, oh, I want to do that. I want to like do what Galliano did and work with Louise. And but never that I wanted to do my own brand. I don't think that was really a thing for me so much. I just thought I wanted to work with, make things.
So how did the own label sort of, I know it kind of began with you doing quite an impromptu show, but how did you go from being like, oh, I probably don't want to do my own label, something you didn't think about, to suddenly, you know, having your own label? It just
It's quite a long story, but I was on the MA, and then I, with Louise Wilson, and then I was kind of doing really shit work, and I was not really sleeping and very depressed. So I took a year out and I deferred, and then I went back a year later and was kind of really excited to show Louise what I'd done. And then it was very sad because she passed away on the Friday and I was going back on the Monday. So it kind of, you know, it all changed, and very sad time, I think. And then went back for a month maybe, and with Fabio, the new tutor, and ended up just like going back to doing terrible stuff, and no one really knew what I was doing there.
Why was that so terrible? What was it like?
Oh, it was just crap. I think I thought that I had to make I thought I had to change everything that I'd ever done, and like start again, and make everything had to be like an angle and like cut out, and and I wasn't very me, I think. And that's what I realised, that's kind of the biggest thing I learned. I didn't really learn anything while I was there, apart from when I left, that's what I just should have been doing all the time, the thing that I knew how to do and did best. So then you have to pass the first year to get into the second year, and I failed. So, which kind of I think was a relief to me, because I knew that I just wasn't having a good time. And then, so that was in the kind of July, I suppose. And then in September or in August, I was talking to my boyfriend, and he said, why don't we just do a party and make some clothes and everyone can wear them? And so we did it, and I think it was so that, because I'd kind of had like years and years of, well, it'd been almost 3 years doing the MA, or 2 years, I can't figure it out, but, and I kind of felt like I had nothing to show for it, because I was tearing up all my sketchbooks every night and stuff like that. So, so I spent a month at home in my kitchen sewing dresses, and my friends would come over and try them on, and then we rented a little church hall in Mayfair during Fashion Week and had a party, and people came, and we emailed, some press came and stuff like that. And then we got an order from IT Hong Kong and Dover Street Market like a week or so after. But I had no studio and no team or anything, or I don't even know if I'd kept the patterns of the dresses I'd made. I kind of had to start again, and suddenly had these big orders to do. So then I spent, I think, a month. I borrowed my mum's spare room, which was only about this big, and worked from 8 a.m. till midnight every day for a month.
Do you think failure is really important? Because people never talk about failure, but actually it seems like failure was really important to you, being bad at something or not doing something well, or as you say, not passing that year.
Yeah. And I think, you have to do things badly sometimes, otherwise you'd never really know what's good anymore, I suppose. I remember thinking, I thought the last collection was 2 weeks before, I thought it was the worst thing in the whole world. I thought it was horrible. I hated it. And then I changed my mind, came around to it. But I think you have to have a moment of
well, you can have a bad season, can't you?
Yeah,
I guess, a season that people aren't a fan of. And
yeah, I suppose that's scary though, because then you have to have the buyers have to buy it, and I think also around it's been 3 years now, I suppose, and I think this is the time where people kind of can get a bit bored of what you're doing, and I don't know, maybe the kind of good luck and the kind of maybe it was all a fluke. That's what I kept on thinking. But then I think somehow. I mean, people bought it this season, so it's all right.
Going back to when you were small, just talk to me about, you mentioned that you loved Galliano, and what would you say were some of the biggest influences on you? Because family seems very important to you. Obviously you work very closely with your sister who styles your shows, and is that something that has really shaped your aesthetic? And you talked about referencing your own clothes. Like a lot of designers talk about, when they talk about their inspirations, they're quite abstract things, whereas it feels like yours are quite close to home.
Yeah, I think I'm still figuring it out a bit, but I think it's a lot to do with people. I'm maybe starting to realise. Like, I never kind of do a collection based on like a painter or a flower. It's more like the idea of a person, and often that person is like someone from my childhood, or like something from like, or an adult I looked up to, or another kind of world that I never really knew. I don't know, like, it sounds a bit vague and a bit silly, but I find it a bit more real in a way than I like kind of imagining other people and what they'd wear, and then relate that to what I want to wear. But yeah, I think a lot about family. I think I did, was lucky and grew up in a kind of very creative house, and I think I like the idea. I think I like the kind of tradition of making clothes. That wasn't really a big part of my family, but I think my great granny used to knit jumpers for me and stuff like that, and my mum always appreciated kind of smocked dresses and things that had kind of a lot of care and attention in them, and I think I've kind of taken on that. I think also one of the things that has been quite an important thing in the way we do things is the way I do things. I would say we, meaning my team, not the royal we, but they what was I saying? Very resourceful, I think, and that's something I grew up with. I liked, it was always very resourceful. It wasn't, buying things from charity shops and customizing things. It was kind of very much, that was a big thing.
What role has London and that particular sort of West London, because also on paper it's not very cool,
No, it's not very cool.
Posh West London thing that you talk about in some of your interviews, talking about enjoying the posh people in that community, and it's not cool. You're meant to be no. East London and edgy, and just tell me a bit about that.
I mean, I think the funny thing is that West London, I grew up in Ladbroke Grove, so it's kind of, it didn't used to be posh, and now it is very posh, but it is still kind of, I still think it's really interesting. It's really frustrating because it's becoming so gentrified and always has been, but it's because of the film, Notting Hill. I think that's what happened.
I love that film.
But literally after that, it became a whole new thing, I think. But I still find it an interesting place to live because there's so many, there's the market, and there's strange people that still live there and have always lived there, and it's quite nice, and it's clean, and it's a nice place to go around on the weekends. But it is a crap place to live now for nightlife. There's nowhere I want to go out there, and even the pubs are quite annoying. But then when I was younger, it wasn't a problem because I was I was living at home, so it was free. And I think growing up in London has played a very important part in everything, because I was thinking about it earlier, but it's quite funny that in terms of nightlife, I had so many different groups all around London that were so different that I would go out, and I used to go out every night when I was about 15.
You're quite spoiled if you live in London in that sense of the wealth of experiences that you can encounter at really young age are sort of quite enormous, whereas a lot of people find inspiration in sort of the mundanity of not being from a small place that they grew up. Whereas you kind of come from that. It's quite actually rare to have London Fashion Week designers who are London born and bred. So it's you're an interesting example for that.
Yeah.
I see it as being very English, and that
England's
kind of
weird though. That's why I'm interested.
Just talk to me a bit about that.
I don't know. England is quite weird. There's very weird things that happen in England, vegetable shows. That's just, those things make me, and kind of weird toys that people have made. And there's certain things that I feel only exist in England, and you can't really explain them to anyone else.
No, totally
I remember my
not.
friend's boyfriend. He was American, and he came to this vegetable show, a horticultural show, and he just didn't
I couldn't understand what
No, he didn't understand it, and he started eating all the cakes because he thought they were offering.
Talk to me a bit about some of the women who wear your clothes, because particularly Rihanna seems to be your like brand ambassador.
Yeah, she does.
How did that happen?
I don't know. I mean, I met Mel Ottenberg, her stylist in New York, like a couple of years ago, I think. And then, I don't know, I think it's up to him.
So good.
She does look good. And it's nice because she buys them. So like, or someone buys them for her. And I just think she's quite on it. She kind of knows what.
Supportive of young brands, isn't she?
Yeah. And we make her things occasionally.
Why does it look so good on her, do you think?
I think she kind of doesn't give a shit. You know, I'd really like it if my granny wore my things, but she's tried them on before, but she doesn't understand it. And then, I don't know, for me I'd like it if all my friends wore it.
There is that strange thing, you see it with sort of younger designers often, where they are looking at their friends, but then they're making clothes that no one of their peer group could afford, and that must be quite a strange sort of dichotomy to be in that position.
Yeah, I think it's really hard, because it's really hard to make clothes that are cheap, and like you shouldn't really make clothes that are cheap because it costs, you know, it's hard to make something for less than kind of £50, and then in the shop that's £150 if not more, you know. I think it's very hard to make something for £50 actually. And then, but I don't really know. I suppose you've got to kind of give things to people, but there is no other way. I don't really know what the other way is unless you do a kind of high street collaboration. I don't know. And I think for me, I am interested in the fact that, like, this kind of range plan that you have to do, and I'm interested in making things that people can wear and then making things that people can't really wear. And I think that's also what would be my dream, to make more of those things. You know, I used to look at shows and just think of them as kind of like these amazing spectacles that were just so inspiring, and then you'd go home and, you know, go home, or I didn't go to shows, I mean like looking in magazines and stuff, and then, you know, you'd do your makeup differently based on what it was in the show, or you'd like try and find something in your wardrobe that looked vaguely like something there, or go out and try and make something. And I don't love the new idea that you kind of, because I think it is quite a new thing that you, like, what you see you can have.
Yeah, you like shop the look.
Yeah, I don't love that idea. But, so when I say things you can't really wear, I just mean things that are, you know, we've made things that kind of can't sell for anything less than about £4,000, which is like so much money. So not many people are going to be able to buy that. But I really appreciate that like shops do sometimes buy those things. And even if they're just for like to draw people in, and they're in the window and they look amazing. And like there's one dress at the moment that's in shops that is kind of made out of this cotton organdy, and it's just so stiff. You can wear it, but it's kind of like paper. But it is my favourite thing. And I think finding the balance is hard, but I wish that I could make more affordable clothes.
Talk to me about some of the places that you worked and you interned, because you worked with Galliano and Medium Kirchhoff, is that right? Just talk to me about those placements.
I actually worked at Giles Deacon as well when I was about 15. I did like my work experience there, and then I went back every now and again and did shows, and that was fun. I really liked being there. I mean, I remember being there and kind of like I'd cut a dress out, and then for production, these like placement print dresses, and then going into Selfridges and seeing it on the rail, and that being like the most exciting thing in the world, that I'd had some part of that final dress. And then Galliano was fun because it was in Paris, and being like with the atelier, I worked a lot in the basement with the atelier, and that was really fun to see that, and kind of being a bit like thrown in at the deep end, and we used to just like copy vintage things and make them in a Galliano fabric, and kind of that was hard. And just I think it was a fun time. I mean, I shared a bed with my friend Annie for 3 months, and then and she worked at Dior and I worked at Galliano, so we'd kind of share stories, and I remember like Stephen Jones coming in, and it was just really exciting. It was really exciting, and seeing how things were made, and I learned a lot about kind of like cutting actually, and like bias cutting and dégradé. That was a big thing. It was a word that was used a lot. And then Mediam Kirchhoff was really good because it was in London, and it was fun. I mean, I think they both were quite good internships because I did a very varied mixture of things. I did like lots of errands and then lots of making. But I'm not sure I learned enormous. I didn't kind of take in, which I wish I had done, like what it actually means to like run. You don't really take note of like actually what's going on.
Were there elements of being there where you saw that sort of darker side of fashion and how punishing it can be?
I would say maybe that one of the things I learned was to be very nice to people, because I think, I'd like to think I'm quite nice to people, but the people that work for me, but you know, I do remember at Galliano being kind of like, you know, the guy in charge of us would make us stay really late even though there was nothing to do. And those, you know, like that, I don't think you can really run a business if you treat people like that. Not run a business, but I don't think like you can maintain it if you do treat people like they're not that, you know, don't really value everyone that works for you. And I think it happens so often in like fashion that everyone is expected to like work incredibly late the whole time, and actually I just find it really unproductive doing that. So, but I suppose that's what I was saying. I didn't really take note of that side of things. I just thought it was like fun to be in that fashion and making clothes, and I didn't really look at that side of things. It's hard to notice it.
Would you ever want to go to a big house?
I don't know.
Have to be the right one.
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, it'd be fun. I mean, I quite like designing to a brief sometimes. So like, and I'd be very excited to see the archives of certain places. But I don't know. That would be a very long way off, I imagine. Do
you have sort of shorter term goals or pipe dreams that you're like, I need to achieve this, that will be success for me?
No, not really.
No, just kind of...
I think at the moment it's very much about like things have always been quite hard, like very hard work, you know, it's like always a challenge and always a stress and always, so like to be able to do a show and it kind of just goes smoothly would be like, that's success for me, I suppose. And the last one was actually quite smooth. Well, we've moved studio, which is really exciting. We've moved to East London.
Oh my gosh.
So that might be I don't know, that might make a change to some, I don't know what. It's really good. It's a big, beautiful space. So I don't know what's happening. The next show is the first show that we don't have sponsorship from the British Fashion Council, or like New Gen officially, I don't think. So kind of that's quite fun in a way, because I suppose it feels like we've got a bit of freedom to kind of really...
Like flown the nest.
Yeah, but also terrifying, because we need quite a lot of money to do it. But I quite like having a limit, you know, I find it quite...
It's like you said, you have to be under pressure to do good work.
Yeah, and like, I feel like if I had an endless budget, I don't know, I would never be able to decide what to do, so it's quite good to kind of... I find it exciting, I suppose.